Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new malicious compliance content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
First one is titled, "If you can't put your phone away during work hours, this isn't the job for you." I work as a direct support person. My company has some serious hate towards cell phone. They used to fire people on spot if they are caught with cell phone. Because of COVID, my company has been suffering badly. They lost about 40% of the staff and roughly half oversights. So they are basically hiring pretty much anyone and throw overtime at anyone who asks for it. But they still are really struggling. It is to the point where they have to have someone pick clients up and bring them to other clients' place because they don't have enough staff to cover everyone. I work with large amount of clients and am pretty much capable of do almost anything that supervisors can do. I'm also the one who has trained many other employees. So they often come to me before they go to supervisor. Last week I was working and I was bored out of my skull as usual. I was working with this client who doesn't want to do much besides watching TV or playing on his tablet all day. So I was on my phone. One of the managers walked in and sneaks up to me and tapped me on the shoulder. I turned to look at the manager and casually say hi. The manager then acts like I was surprised and tries to hide the fact I was using phone. I was casually holding it as the manager gave me a long lecture. I told the manager, I work 16 hours a day and took on many tasks that I don't have to just to give the supervisor some breathing space. I sure damn as hell am going to use my phone when there's nothing else to do. Manager then smirked and told me to put my phone away and told me I'd have to come down to the office sometime in the next few days. I remind the manager of how shitty some employees were, hours late every day, literally sleeping on job, etc., and didn't got fired. So it is really unfair of them to get all up in arms about me being on the phone. I was told if I can't stay off the phone then this isn't the right job for me. I went and grabbed my stuff then clocked out. The manager was jumping all over the place screaming about how I can't abandon my clients. I told the manager if I wasn't being nitpicking for tiny thing that doesn't affect anyone we'd not be in this jam. The manager begged me to stay for just a bit so someone can come and take over. I say no, got in the car and left with manager standing there watching me dumbstruck. A bit over an hour later supervisor contacted me and apologized for what happened. I was informed that they really need me around and from on and now if anyone comes in, as long as I put the phone away, no one will say a word. Since I like my supervisor and am friend with many employees, I don't want to make things harder on them and I also need money. I reluctantly agree to come back the next day. But if I ever hear anything about me being on the phone again, I'm gone. Just a few hours ago, the manager come in and saw me on the phone. I just put it in my pocket and got up. We had a short conversation about work issue. Not a single word about the phone was mentioned. Next one is titled, "Evict me without cause and only give me till midnight to be out? No problem." So once upon a time I was living in a, not legal, basement apartment of an old Hungarian woman's house. I was poor, the place was cheaper than what was around, and so I took it. How bad could it be? She was horrific. At first she was an okay landlady, but then things started to turn. First I noticed that things were off when I got home from work. Ever get that feeling someone was in your room? That. So I asked her if she'd been in there and she denied it. Then I set up a camera and caught her on camera. Asked her again and she denied it, saying she's never go in my apartment without telling me. Then I showed her the video and she got mad at me. I worked nights. One time she came in during the daytime and I was there. In bed, naked under the sheets. I woke up when she came in and asked if I could help her, she said no and left. After that she would call me, lazy boy, when she saw me, assuming I didn't work since it was at night. Things kept getting worse. She'd sometimes shut off the water when she thought I was using too much or when I refused to share my Wi-Fi password with her other tenant. Finally, one night I had some friends over for a birthday. There were 6 of us total. It was around 11 p.m. and trust me when I say, we were not being loud at all. Literally just hanging around the coffee table eating cheesecake, talking and laughing. She came into my apartment and started yelling that I was having a loud party with too many people in the middle of the night. She actually came and grabbed my shirt telling me everyone had to leave. Oh hell no. That was it. So I pushed her off of me and the police was called. That Monday, she left a really poorly written eviction notice on my door, seriously handwritten, telling me to be out by Saturday by midnight. Here's the MC. By 11:59 p.m. that Saturday, I had all my stuff in the U-Haul. My friends and I were just working on bagging up the trash and other stuff for the dump, when she came in and yelled at me that it was past midnight. No problem. I got up and left, leaving a huge pile of junk in the bedroom and storage room. Easily 2 pickup trucks worth of crap I wasn't taking. She actually called my father, who was my emergency contact on my application, to tell me it cost her $400 to haul it all away and that I owed her money. He blocked the number. The end. Bonus story. She was showing the apartment when I was still living there. She didn't tell me, so when she led 2 strangers in the daytime, waking me up again, I stood up. Fully naked, full staffed, and said I wouldn't rent from her if it were the last apartment in town. The couple quickly left. Next one is titled, "You must have your director's permission to enter the building." Hi everyone, I recently executed a bit of malicious compliance that I thought I'd share with you. During COVID, we haven't been able to regularly access our office and have instead had to work from home. Most of my team is field-based anyway, so it hasn't been a huge problem. Next to our main office is a workshop, storage area that is managed and accessed only by my team. We use this to store equipment and materials and carry out some work in there. Typically 1 or 2 team members will be there each day, though it could be as many as 5. If staff are collecting and dropping off equipment, they might need 2 or more visits per day. On the rare occasion we do need to go into the main office, we have to get permission from a director. We would normally do this a few days in advance once we had a piece of work that required access. Without this permission, security won't let us in. As the offices are in a city center location, parking is expensive, but our employer will provide it in our own secure car park. To access this car park again, you also have to email for permission. At some point someone noticed that staff were requesting parking in the car park but not access to the main building. I was asked about this by the facility manager, as there was a concern that people were trying to get free parking for personal errands and not work. I explained that staff were carrying out work or collecting equipment from the store and I'd given them permission. I was told that this was unacceptable and only our director could give permission to access buildings. I decided the best way to prove my point was with a little malicious compliance. I did a few checks and saw that there was an almost immediate opportunity. I instructed my staff that they weren't to access the workshop, store unless they had permission. I said that I knew it was ridiculous, but I had a plan and everything would be sorted within a week. I also told them that for the next few days we would be catching up with all our mandatory training and odd jobs. I told staff if any requests for work came in to ask the customer to call back later in the week, and I would delay any new jobs being allocated for a few days. This all happened on the Tuesday. Wednesday and Thursday were spent catching up on boring admin and e-learning, and then Friday arrives. I allocate jobs to staff and advise my team that if they need access to the workshop, store, then they must email for permission, and entering without consent could lead to disciplinary action. I advised that they should wait by the security desk at the main building until permission was granted. A few hours into the day I start getting emails from my staff saying they've needed access to the store and have emailed for permission but haven't heard back. I advised that they wait. After another hour or so I get an irate phone call from the facility manager asking what's going on. I explain that my staff isn't allowed in without permission, and so they are waiting by security, so there are no allegations of them sneaking into the workshop. He asks why permission wasn't granted in advance, and I explain that the work requests had only come in on that day. He explains that the director is on leave and can't grant permission, but he could grant in his absence. I refused and said that only our director could give permission. I agreed to ask the staff to leave for home and to postpone their jobs. Monday rolled around and I got a phone call from the director. He'd received complaints from the facility manager and a few other senior managers about the situation. Thankfully, he realized how ridiculous the situation was and said he'd only agreed to keep the facility manager quiet. It was clear that I'd orchestrated the situation, but the director was willing to take the blame for the issue. The decision was reversed and now staff don't need permission. One other plus point is that I've stopped receiving email reminders about my team members' training being out of date. Next one is titled, "That price, again, was?" American. Here, there is a federal law that requires the labeled price to be the one charged at the time of purchase. Retail clerks make mistakes and I'm aware that sometimes people take advantage of those mistakes. I'm not usually one to do so, unless I'm treated poorly. Shopping at my local supermarket, I see a display of imported, smoked Gouda cheese. It's one of my favorite cheeses and I buy it often from that store. I know what it usually costs. What caught my eye was these wedges were priced per each, not per ounce. Let's say the normal price was US $4.99 per ounce, so a reasonable wedge of 3 or 4 ounces was anywhere between $15 and $20. Oh, no, these were priced at $4.99 each, regardless of weight. Now, I'm a pretty honest guy, so I informed the deli manager of the discrepancy. He got snotty with me, told me the prices were, as marked, and if I didn't like it he would be glad to have the store manager correct me. Alrighty, then. I grabbed all the mispriced wedges I could find, loaded up my cart and headed to the checkout register. The girl working it commented on how cheap the cheese was. I told her it was priced incorrectly and that the deli manager didn't want to be bothered with it. She just smiled and said, "Good for you." I gave away a lot of it but ended up spending $200 for almost $900 worth of cheese. Last one is titled, "Want to play office politics? Play stupid games, win stupid prizes." Early last year, I started working as a contractor supporting one of the many government agencies here in the US. My job description was pretty simple. Act as administrative support for a particular federal employee. In effect, I'm a glorified secretary. I push papers, schedule and file things, and act as a gaffer whenever necessary. The job wasn't particularly difficult, but it really helped that the Fed and I got along like a house on fire. The problem is, the Fed I work for doesn't get along with another Fed who works in the same office. Their job descriptions have nothing to do with each other, and there is really very little need for them to interact with each other. But for some reason, which I still don't know, there was bad blood between them. Cue the pandemic. Our office went from a steady workload to a maximum telework position, and just like that, there was no work for the contractors to do. No more pushing papers. No more scheduling or filing things. And no more acting as a gaffer. Just long days sitting in my cubicle reading Reddit on my phone. The Fed I support decides that we'll take the opportunity to clean out 2 offices in another building that haven't been used for years, so they can be repurposed. They'd sat idle for years because no one wanted to clean them. These rooms are filthy, with electronics that were old in the 90s, old break room food, cables everywhere. As we get started, I'm happy to be there, as cleaning these rooms means I finally have something to do. Better yet, the Fed I worked for was right there with me, elbow deep in garbage. After the first day, we have made solid progress on one of the rooms, but it took 8 hours of hard labor to get there. I go back to my cubicle to gather my things to go home and find the other Fed waiting for me. "Where have you been all day?" "I've been in the other building helping my Fed clean out a room." That's not in your job description. You don't need to be helping this person do that." I really don't mind. It's better than sitting around on the government's dime, doing nothing. And besides, my job is to support this person. If they want me to help clean out a room, I'm more than happy to help. "No, you can't be doing that. If it's not in your job description, then it's not your job." This Fed should know better than to take advantage of your good nature and make you do work that you weren't hired for. I'm sorry. You're going to have to take that up with my Fed. As far as I know, my job is to support this person in whatever way they need, including physical labor. We'll see about that. The next day, my Fed and I go back to the other building to work. We're 10 minutes into cleaning when the other Fed shows up with a member of the union in tow. The Fed then rips into my Fed for forcing me to do work outside of the scope of my duties, and brought the union representative to back up this opinion. The funny thing was, the union rep had no idea what he was doing there. Neither my Fed nor I are members of the union, and his opinion really had nothing to do with the situation. The other Fed brought him in to use as a prop. To his credit, he seemed to know that, because he just gave us an uncomfortable shrug with a look like, "I have no idea why I'm here either," and said nothing at all. Rather than fight about it, my Fed surrenders gracefully, and the two of us reluctantly leave the uncleaned rooms behind. A week later, I was sent home after guidance came down from Washington saying that since there was no work being done, contractors were no longer needed to support the Feds on staff until the pandemic ended. I sat home for about a day, before getting a call from my company telling me another division needed me. This would be a permanent change of office, and as long as I didn't mind the risk of COVID, I could start immediately. Fast forward several months to November. I'm happily working away in my new office when the Fed who had a problem with my helping clean the rooms comes in to speak with some of the employees in my new office. This person is absolutely livid, because the two rooms had finally been reassigned, but still needed to be cleaned before they could be turned over to their new owners. This Fed was called into work specifically to clean the rooms, despite still being on maximum telework status, because there was no one else they could call. All of the contractors who had supported them had already been reassigned, and there was nothing in this person's job description that said they couldn't be assigned this particular duty. Apparently, it took almost 2 weeks of backbreaking labor to clean out the rooms until they were good enough to transfer. The best part was, this person seems to have completely forgotten what part one had to play in this little drama, because when they came to my office to complain about the injustice of it all to anyone who would listen, they stood right in front of my desk to do so. I got to hear every word of the story right from the horse's mouth. Thanks for listening.